Hey guys, so just a little bit of random stuff for you today. First of all, an explanation about that. That's actually the heating element of a kotatsu. So some of you might have seen years ago we made a video about kotatsu. It's those tables, it's a low table, you sit on the floor around a low table, it usually has a blanket over the top of it, and one of those heating elements underneath, so you put your legs under the blanket under the table, and that heating element makes it all nice and warm and cozy under there. So there was an old kotatsu here that had broken legs and wasn't really much use to us anymore, but I pinched the heating element and it makes this little workshop a little bit more cozy. It's about 5 degrees outside and the wind is really cold, so that's quite pleasant. So this is a cat toilet, right? So just today's experience was so Japanese, it really needed I thought maybe it was worth a video. You guys can decide if it was or not. So in Australia, I always had cats for some reason. I always ended up with all homeless cats that would come and live wherever I was living, for some strange reason. And I do like cats. However, the reality of cats is that they do eat the wildlife, don't they? And some of you would be aware that we have some nice wildlife here at the old Japanese farmhouse, and I didn't really want cats to be eating the wildlife. Also, the local town has a rule, has an ordinance that people are not allowed to let their cats roam around, that their cats have to stay inside. So that's another complication. So for those reasons, I was sort of never really keen on having a cat here. However, the small people in the family have been really keen for a cat for some time, and it sort of seems sort of sad to deprive them of it, of having that experience of having a cat in the house. So decided, okay, all right, we'll have a cat. So obviously we're not going to buy one from a pet shop, because we're of the opinion that buying animals from pet shops just perpetuates the factory, the pet factory, and the fact that this town does have a problem with too many feral cats. That's why the town has the ordinance about not allowing your cats to roam free, because there's a big problem here with feral cats. So we checked out the city website to try and find out where the pet pound or the animal refuge or something like that, and it turns out that there was a group that's organised in the town that collect feral animals and have them neutered and find homes for them and things like that. Very good thing to do, isn't it? So obviously, that helps the cats, but it also helps protect the wildlife from the cats, right? So okay, that sounds like the way to go. And then in typical Japanese style, you can only have a look at the cats once a month for 2 hours. So today, it was Sunday, today's Sunday, this video is made a couple of days ago. So between 10:30 and 12:30 you have to go to the city hall, and they've got all the cats that are available in a room, and you go and have a look at the cats, right? So I went there and did that, and it was so Japanese, guys. I mean, I've been to pet refuges in Australia, and it was so different. But you walk in, none of it was a surprise, by the way. It was all typical Japanese sort of stuff. So you walk in the door, and you have to register. So all you're wanting to do is walk in this room in City Hall and have a look at some cats, right? But you've got to register first. So you've got to write down your name and address and phone number and all that sort of stuff. Then you can go and look at the cats. And it was really, what do you call that? Like regimented, really super organised, and just a lot of faffing, So anyway, I looked at all the cats. I mean, I've got to say again, I think that group, they're all volunteers. And it's a wonderful thing they're doing, because it's helping save the cats, but also, even if you don't like cats, it's also, by doing what they're doing, they're helping save the natural animals, right? The native animals. Because if you've got less cats roaming around eating the native animals, that's a good thing, right? So I really respect what they're doing. But it's just the way, anytime you get a group, you get a group of more than 2 Japanese people doing something, it becomes unnecessarily complicated. So anyway, we checked out all the cats. Probably sometime in the future I'll have to show you the cat now we've talked about it. So we finally picked a cat, and okay, we'll take this cat, all right. And I just imagined that they'd go, all right, here's the cat. It's $200, see you later, right? It's $200 because they've already had it neutered and all that sort of stuff, right? So $200, yeah, all right, save the cats. And no, so we'll deliver it to you, right? We'll deliver it to you. When shall we deliver it? All right, and then here's these forms. They had 3 or 4 forms there. Please read all this. And okay, so we'll deliver it to you, and we'll come and we'll check out the house. Oh, yeah, they wanted to know the names of all the people that live in the house and the ages of all the people that live in the house, right? They wrote all that down on the form, all the people that live in the house and their ages. And then, okay, we'll deliver the cat to you, and then we'll need to check these things. We need to check that that it can't get outside. And we can sort of see some sense to what they're doing. They don't want to give you a cat that you're going to go and let become feral again, right? Because that would defeat the purpose of what they're doing. So that's fair enough. But just the complicated and illogical way they do it, so typical Japanese, you know. So fill out all these forms, and okay, here's all the rules, right? You have to have a cage. And I've talked about this on videos years ago. We often visit people here, or we have visited people here at different times, who have cages in their house for either for their fifis, you know, they have little dogs in a cage, or cats in a cage, and they'll keep them in there a lot. We went to one place where there was a pretty big dog in a cage all the time, and they'll take it out once a day to take it for a walk, but the rest of the time it's in a cage, you know, not much bigger than this table. Just terrible. You know, and here's these people that are sort of protecting animals talking about the cage. You've got to have a cage, you know, and obsessed with this cage thing. You've got to keep it in a cage. And so the idea is that they'll come tomorrow, bring the cat, and they'll bring a cage, and they'll let us have this cage for a week. And they call it a trial, but the definite feeling I got from the way they were talking was, it's a trial to see if we are happy to have the cat, which is fair enough. Find out if we like it and if we want to keep it, because they don't want us to. Obviously, they don't want people to go dumping them, do they? To defeat the purpose. That's all fair enough. But the distinct impression I got was that they also want to make sure that we are going to do the right thing, right? As far as their guidelines and their rules and all this stuff is concerned, and they want to make sure. They want to make sure we keep it in the cage, and so they're going to give us a cage for a week, and we keep it in the cage to stop it getting out, because it's going to want to get out. It's going to want to get out, so you've got to keep it in the cage, right? Which is just irrational. I mean, you guys have seen inside the old farmhouse. It's a big house, you know, and we've got 2 kids that, you know, the youngest one's old enough to know not to let the cat outside. The door, the main door of the genkan is an automatic closer on it. We're not going to let the cat outside, you know, and you're keeping the cage. And I had a bit of an idea out the front of the house. If I do it, I'll make a video, but I had a bit of an idea for the front of the house to have like a net, make it like a cage out of net, but quite large outside the house, with a little flap door going inside the house. My thinking was then we could have this cat toilet that we got from one of our friends. They don't need it anymore. Their old cat passed away. So the idea is, I was thinking, is have a cat toilet outside instead of inside the house, and then the cat could come and go, and if it wanted to go outside and lie in the sun, it could, right? And give it a nice outdoor area. It could go and hang out if it wanted to. But listening to these guys talk, and my wife actually tried to explain to her at one stage what my plan was, and you could see typical Japanese reaction. Anytime you try to tell them something that they haven't heard 100 times before, that you try and explain something to them that's not a common thing, you just get this blank expression. And that's exactly what she got. She just got this blank expression that, and it wasn't, she was doing a good job of explaining it, you know, we just want to net off this area outside, keep the cat in, or, you know, and you could see the reaction. They didn't like it because they hadn't heard of it before. So I said to her on the way home, we won't do that until after this 1 week trial's over, because obviously we try and do that and show them, they're not going to understand it, they're not going to relate to it, or, you know. But just unnecessarily complicated. And I actually said to the wife on the way home, you know, we can go to a pet shop here, walk in the door, pay the money, and walk out the door with the pet. And I'm not going to do that, but the point is, if they make it too difficult for people to get a pet from them, you know, all this inspection thing that they do, and they actually said, you know, that they have to approve us after the week. They approve that they'll leave the cat with us. Well, so what happens, I mean, I assume we're going to get through their approval process, but what happens with people who don't? You imagine if they said, oh no, sorry, you can't have a cat because your house isn't secure enough, or it's not, whatever it is that they weren't happy with, that person's just going to go to a pet shop, aren't they, and buy a pet from the pet shop, which is exactly what these people are trying to avoid. So it's just the lack of logic, you know. We've talked about this on so many videos before. The lack of logic, you know, when it comes to stuff like this it's frustrating. It really is. You know, when other people here are doing stuff that's not logical, you can sort of go, oh well, haha, that's pretty funny. But when it affects you, you know, when people are coming to your house to inspect it, my wife actually said what time, they said what time's good, and my wife looked at me, and I picked a time when I knew she'd be here and I wouldn't be, because I don't want to be here. It's the same as when they're doing all the questions. I actually made a point of getting busy with the kids, looking at the cat, when they're asking all these questions, because it's very hard to stay cool and positive and polite and friendly and happy when they're doing this sort of stuff, you know, when they're doing all these 600 questions, and feels really intrusive, you know. So I know some of this stuff, when we make videos about this sort of stuff, a lot of it probably sounds petty, and people are probably going, oh, what's his problem? That's it, I could deal with that. Yeah, you can. But it's also good to know this is what happens here, because you know, we've found over the years that after we've talked about things like this, quite often people who live here have said, oh yeah, I had the same experience with something similar, right? The group thing. Anytime there's the group thing, and the group has composed pages of rules or guidelines, they call them I'll say to you, it's an honour guy, right? Which is like a favour. You know, as a favour, we'd like you to do this, and as a favour, we'd like you to do that. That's the way they phrase these things, to make it sound like it's just asking you a favour. It's not telling you have to do it. You know, sometimes they will. Sometimes they'll tell you it's a rule. It's a rule, you've got to do it. But quite often in situations like this, they'll just tell you it's an honour guy. It's an honour guy. It's a favour. It's a favour. It's a favour as a favour. But you know, if you don't do it, that they're going to go, oh, sorry, we can't. You know, you can't have the cat. It's just ridiculous, isn't it? So it's sort of as usual here. You can usually see where it's come from. I mean, it's come from a good place. They're just trying to make sure that they don't perpetuate the homeless cat thing, which is fair enough. That's logical. But, you know, the way they go about it, you know, unnecessarily complicated. Pages of nonsense, and setsime, the big setsime. You can't do anything here without the big setsime. It's a big, long explanation of all these things, and that's where, you know, if you've got a choice, if you find yourself in that situation and you've got a choice and you don't have to be there listening to the setsime, sometimes it's better get yourself further away so you're not involved. So that's what I did. I went and got busy with the kids looking at the cat, and stayed away from the big long setsime and all the intrusive questions about, you know, who lives in our house and how old they are. That's an interesting one. Well, maybe they're worried about kids tormenting cats or something. Weird. But anyway, so there was 600 questions. So yeah, and then I knew that there'll be more of that tomorrow, because they're going to come there and come tomorrow and inspect the house. Isn't that amazing? Wouldn't you think if you went to an animal refuge, usually they'd just go, okay, here's the cat, you know, here's some, maybe give you some information that might help you, and then you'd be on your way, right? But no, we couldn't take the cat with us. They've got to bring it here tomorrow. So that's why I made a point of picking a time where she'll be here and I won't, because I know what it'll be like. They'll want to check out the house, probably check out all the doors and windows, you know, a big inspection of the place. So the wife's much more patient with stuff like that. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I'll ask her how long they were here for after, you know, when I do come home, and I'm sure they'll faff around for an hour or so with big setsime and big explanation and lots of questions and, you know, unnecessary nonsense, you know, but it's just what they do. Just what they do. So the reason I make these videos is I have found over the years that people who are living here now, or have lived here in the past, or come here in the future, once they've heard this sort of stuff, they know, they're aware of it. Then when they experience it, it's a little bit easier to deal with. So it's not. It doesn't make it totally easy to deal with. I mean, I know this is what it's like here, and I expect it most of the time. But they do surprise you sometimes with how much unnecessary nonsense they'll go on with. You know, just pointless, time-wasting faffing. You know, really, you know. Don't let the cat get out, you know. We'd prefer you try not let the cat get out because we don't want... That would be enough, wouldn't it? You know, they're giving it to adults. It's just this... And interesting hearing my wife on the way home, we were talking about how she reacted to all that. They don't question any of it. They don't question the logic of any of it. They don't... All they do is just try to conform to what the group wanted. The group said this. That's what she kept saying. The group said this, and she's got these pages of information. And the group honour guy was this, and the group honour guy was that. And we need to do this, and we need to do that. And that's what Japanese people do. They focus on what they've been told and how to conform to it. That's what they focus on, and they don't question the logic of any of it, or the other one was the vaccination. They wanted us to make sure that the cat never went outside, right? And then they said one of the things on their list was that you had to get the cat vaccinated once a year, right, against cat diseases, right? Now, if the cat never leaves the house and never interacts with another cat, right, why do you need to have it vaccinated against diseases that it can catch from other cats, right? The conflicting logic in those two guidelines, right, it makes no sense, does it? And again, she didn't question it. So when she said to me, oh, we've got to get it vaccinated once a year, and when I questioned it, said to her, wait a minute, we're supposed to be keeping the cat away from other cats. Why do we need to get it vaccinated? They said, and that's often the Japanese answer to stuff like that is, there's not a why. The why is that they said that that's what we should do, so that's what we should do. And I said, is it a rule? She said, it's an honour guy. Yeah, there we go. It's a favour again. It's a guideline. But that's enough. That's enough. It's the same as during COVID. During COVID in Japan, we had very few laws or rules. What we had was guidelines, and once they made guidelines, almost everybody conformed to them without question, you know. And that's the Japanese lifestyle. Which, you know, the upside of that, there's positives to all of this. You know, the upside to that is that's why this is such an orderly, you know, society with few problems, is because they have guidelines and everybody, almost everybody follows them, right? So. But just, it's hard sometimes, this tiny little cat, you know, and all this bullshit, just for a cat, you know, just the unnecessary, you know. Well, you'd imagine in another country, probably they'd just give you a page of useful information, you know, this, that we recommend this, and you'll find it's best to do this, and if you do that and do that and do that, you know, it would be enough, wouldn't it? I ended up with homeless cats all over the place in Australia. I had a big house and big garden, and cats used to appear. You know, at one stage I just had one, and then I went out one night, put out the food for the cat, came back later, there was 2 cats there. I was like, hello, who are you? And just this random cat just started living there, and then later the same thing happened, but we had the 2 cats, and then one night I put the food out. When I went out later on, there was 3 cats out there, right? So I picked up one off a road once, a little one on a road, looked like it was going to hit by a car, stopped and picked it up. So, you know, that's, when you come from a background like that, and this is what happens with foreigners that come to Japan, of course, we come from very different backgrounds where there's not that amount of faffing and nonsense and, you know, worry about everything. They overly worry. You know, they go on about all this, they worry about something happening that's not orderly, you know, and then that caught on to my wife then. On the way home, she's just rattling off one thing after another that she's worried about, that because they'd said it to her, now she's worried about it. That's what they do. They worry that something might happen that's not by the book, that's not by the robot. You know, you get that all the time with kid stuff too. The way the adults that talk about kids and their thinking, and is that they want everything to be like robotic and mechanical, and if anything's different, they live in fear of that, you know. And it's just this big fear they've got of something happening, right? You know, and when you've come from a background like I have, where cats just turn up and you feed them and they live there now, and you know, I used to have a sliding door that was always open just enough for a cat to get through, but not open enough for a person to get through. And the cats just came and went as they wanted to, and the only thing I had to do was to give them food twice a day, and the rest of the time they were free to do what they wanted. One of them, little female cat, used to go and collect snakes and bring them home. Right? including a brown snake one time. That went badly. Eastern brown snake in Australia is one of the most deadly snakes in the world. So anyway, I digress. So the cat's toilet's clean, ready to go, and the cat's coming tomorrow. So anyway, I hope there was some benefit to someone. Nothing to do with cats, really. This isn't really anything to do with cats at all. What this is about is just Japanese society and the paranoia about, everything conforming. Everything's got to conform, and the pages of information and the Setsume thing. They give you pages of information and then basically read it all to you. And how many examples have I given you that over the years, where they have written explanations that they then read to you? That happens all the time. Happens at the post office, happens at the bank, happens at fun parks, just came to mind, the rules at the fun park. They'll have PA systems telling you the rules while you walk around the fun park. They go on and on and on with the rules. They repeat them like once an hour or something, telling you all the rules. It's just this conformity thing. And again, it's one of the reasons why Japan is such a orderly, organised, good place to live. But this is the downside, that if you live here, you get, this stuff gets tiring sometimes. You get sick of it. It's like, oh, really? Going on and on and on. Hearing her going on and on and on with all this explanation for, I don't know, could have been an hour, and you know that tomorrow there's going to be another hour at least tomorrow, and they'll want to check out the house. Really intrusive stuff too. And for Japanese people, that sort of stuff's normal, to have someone come and inspect your house, and check all the entrances and exits, because the wife will see that as being there helping us. Whereas I'd feel like it was being intrusive. They come and inspect my house to see if I can have a cat. That's Big Brother sort of stuff, isn't it? So, best I'm not home, I think. Always best. You can be patient and you can do your best in these situations, but if you can avoid them, that's even better. So, I'll be avoiding that one. Anyway, the heater's working, nice and warm. Turn it up a bit higher. There we go. All right, that's enough of that. Hopefully someone got something out of that, whether you're into cats or not. It's a Japanese society thing, isn't it? More videos coming soon.